The stars drifted across the black window of the research vessel Ardent Seeker, like tiny silver sparks. Its hull gleamed in soft blue light as it coasted through the quiet edge of Coalition space. Inside, scientists, engineers, and explorers gathered in the observation bay, staring at a single object displayed on the large forward screen. There, slowly spinning in the darkness, was a ship unlike anything they had ever seen. Dr. Lyris Van, chief archaeologist of the Seeker, pressed her hands against the console, her pale eyes fixed on the strange vessel. "Look at the structure," she whispered.
Thick armor, angular lines.
"It's old but still whole." Captain Reynard Jol, a tall, steady officer with silver scales along his temples, folded his arms. "Our scans confirm the ship is of human origin," he said. "Designation reads ISS Resolute. Registry lost in Coalition archives." The room filled with a soft murmur. Humans were a minor voice in the galactic community, a species that rarely left its own sector. Few Coalition citizens had ever met one in person. But this warship, silent and adrift for unknown centuries, promised stories locked in metal and memory. Dr. Van leaned closer to the display. "A warship," she said almost reverently. "What were they fighting?
And how did this craft survive?"
Ensign Darrow, the youngest member of the crew, looked uneasy. "The outer hull shows impact scars," he said. "Yet the damage is minimal for a ship of its age. It's as if something kept repairing it, or refused to let it fall apart." Captain Jol studied the readings. Power traces were faint like embers under ashes, but they were there. The Resolute was not entirely dead. The Coalition valued knowledge above all things. Their fleets were built not for war but for understanding. To study the relic of a rarely seen race was a chance too important to ignore. Still, Jol's instincts stirred. Something about the lonely warship felt alert. He turned to the security chief, Marathal, a broad-shouldered officer with calm green eyes. "Thoughts?" Mara's gaze stayed on the silent vessel. "My readings show residual energy in its core," she said. "Not much, but steady. If we board without care, we might wake systems we don't understand." Dr. Van shook her head gently. "If we wait, the ship could drift deeper into the void. Who knows when another chance like this will come? We must see what is inside." The debate lasted only minutes. Curiosity has always outweighed caution. Captain Jol gave the order to move closer. The Ardent Seeker adjusted its course, engines humming softly. A docking tube extended toward the larger craft, its metal spine glinting in the starlight. As they drew near, the full size of the Resolute became clear. Its dark hull stretched for kilometers, scarred but strong. Strange markings ran along its flanks, human letters, still sharp despite the years. In the docking bay, a small team prepared to step aboard. Dr. Van stood at the front, adjusting her scanner while Mira checked her sidearm, a standard pulse weapon, set to a low non-lethal output. Behind them were Darrow carrying recording gear, and two technicians with repair packs in case the old ship's airlocks resisted. The bay doors opened, revealing the docking tube locked against the warship's side. Beyond it, a circular hatch waited, marked with faded yellow caution symbols. "Stay alert," Mira advised. "We don't know what state its systems are in." Dr. Van's excitement was plain. "Imagine what we'll find. A preserved bridge, maybe personal logs or even samples of their weapons technology." Darrow swallowed hard, but followed as they crossed the tube. The hatch groaned as the technicians worked its manual controls. After a moment, the door swung inward, releasing a puff of stale air. The team stepped through, lights on their suits cutting across the dark interior. The corridor beyond was wide and built for strength. Heavy plating lined the floor and walls. Support beams crossed the ceiling like ribs. Despite the ship's age, no dust floated in the air, only a faint metallic smell as if the ship had been waiting. "Structural integrity is exceptional," one of the technicians said, scanning the walls. "I don't see corrosion." Mara touched the bulkhead, feeling its cold surface. "This is military design," she noted. "Everything built to last, to take damage and stay functional." As they advanced, small details caught their eyes. Handholds bolted near doors, emergency panels with labels in clear, blocky script. Some hatches bore red signs, warning and authorized personnel only. Even without knowing every word, the meaning was clear. Darrow pointed to a section of wall scorched and dented. "Looks like battle damage," he said. But the ship didn't break apart. It must have been incredibly resilient. Dr. Van paused beside a sealed doorway, Humans were clever engineers, she murmured. To send a ship like this so far, they must have had courage. Mira frowned slightly. Or desperation, she said. Warships are built when peace isn't enough. They reached a large chamber that looked like a crew gathering area. Rows of seats were fixed to the floor, and consoles lined the walls. The lights from their suits reflected off blank screens. A single banner, faded but intact, hung from the ceiling, a stylized emblem of Earth and stars. This place is still, Darrow whispered. Like everyone just walked out. Dr. Van activated a scanner sweeping the room. I'm detecting a weak energy signal, she said. Origin, deeper in the ship. Mira's hand stayed near her weapon. We follow the signal, but we do it carefully. The group pressed on. Their boots echoed faintly in the quiet halls. Every step seemed to stir the air as if the Resolute was aware of their presence. In the silence, even the hum of their suits felt loud. Meanwhile, on the bridge of the Ardent Seeker, Captain Jal watched the team's progress on a split display. Their suit cams showed silent corridors, empty rooms, and strange shadows thrown by old metal. He shifted uneasily. Any changes in the warship's power? He asked the helm officer. Still faint, Captain, the officer replied. But there's a pattern, almost like a heartbeat. Jal considered recalling the team, but he knew the scientists would resist. Knowledge was their mission. He could only hope the ship remained as quiet as it seemed. Inside the Resolute, the team descended a staircase to a lower deck. Here the air felt heavier, and faint lights glimmered along the walls, tiny diodes still alive after centuries. The glow traced the edges of doors and consoles, casting a pale green sheen. Some systems are running, Darrow said, voice hushed. Dr. Van's eyes lit up. Remarkable. The power source must be far more efficient than anything we know. Mira walked at the rear, scanning shadows with practiced care. She didn't share Van's joy. Something about those flickering lights suggested intention, not mere accident. They entered another room smaller than the gathering hall but lined with control panels. One display suddenly flickered, showing faint static, then a line of text. Systems, standby mode. The crew exchanged glances. Did anyone touch that console? Mira asked sharply. No, said a technician. It came on by itself. A quiet tension settled over the room. The ship, long dormant, seemed to stir under their gaze. Captain Jal's voice crackled through their comms. Team status report, Dr. Van replied, steady but excited. We found operational panels. The ship's systems may still be active. Proceed with caution, Jal warned. If anything changes, power surges, movement, withdraw immediately. Understood, Mira said firmly. As they moved deeper, they found evidence of life once aboard. Mugs secured in holders, chairs bolted near consoles, lockers sealed tight. Yet there were no signs of crew remains, no damage suggesting a catastrophic end. It was as if the ship's people had simply stepped away. Darrow paused at a wall covered with small plates, each engraved with names and dates. Maybe a memorial? He said softly. Dr. Van nodded. Or a list of those who served. The engravings gave the room a quiet dignity, a reminder that this ship had been more than metal. It had carried lives. Hours seemed to pass as they explored. Finally, they reached a massive door with heavy locking clamps. Symbols across its surface hinted at importance, bold letters, warning stripes, and an emblem of a shield. This must be near the central core, Dr. Van said, her voice tinged with awe. Mira stepped forward, inspecting the door. We don't force it, she said. If this is protecting the main systems, we could trigger defenses. Dr. Van hesitated, torn between caution and discovery. We need to see what lies beyond, she said, but she kept her hands off the controls. Before they could decide, a soft vibration hummed through the floor. The lights along the corridor brightened, faint but steady, as if responding to their presence. Captain, are you seeing this? Mira asked over comms. On the Ardent Seeker's bridge, alarm stayed silent, but the reading spiked slightly. We see it, Jal said, voice calm but tight. All teams return to the docking point for now. Dr. Van looked back at the sealed door, longing clear in her face. It's alive, she whispered. Mira guided her gently away. And alive means dangerous until we understand it. As they retraced their steps, the Resolute remained quiet. Yet there was a new feeling in its halls, an invisible attention, like eyes following from the dark. The ship was not only a relic. It was something more, something waiting. When they stepped back through the airlock into the safety of the ardent seeker, Captain Jol stood ready to meet them. His eyes searched their faces. "Well?" he asked. Dr. Van removed her helmet, her expression a mix of triumph and unease. "It's magnificent," she said. "And it isn't dead." The captain nodded slowly, glancing once more at the image of the silent warship. The research vessel Ardent Seeker floated beside the silent giant, its lights casting soft reflections on the dark surface of the human warship. Inside the command deck, Captain Renard Jol stood at the central console, watching data flow across the screens. Every sensor reading told him the same story. The ISS Resolute was not completely dead. Weak pulses of energy flickered inside the warship, like the heartbeat of a sleeper. They were faint, scattered, but steady. Jol felt a quiet unease in his chest. A ship this old should have been nothing more than cold metal. Yet something inside refused to rest. On the lower deck, Dr. Lyris Van paced the small briefing room, excitement alive in her pale eyes. She held a datapad filled with sketches of symbols and schematics copied from the Resolute. Around the table sat Security Chief Marathal, young Ensign Darrow, and two technicians, Sen and Carol. They had changed out of their suits but still looked tense. "We have to go back," Dr. Van said firmly. "Those lights along the corridor weren't random. They activated because of us. There may be an intelligence still functioning." Mira's calm green eyes fixed on her. "Or a defense system," she replied. "Something designed to wake if intruders entered. That energy spike when we reached the sealed door wasn't friendly." Van shook her head. There was no sign of hostility. No traps, no weapons fire, just awareness. Darrow shifted uneasily. "Awareness can still be dangerous," he said. "What if the ship decides we're a threat?" Captain Jol entered then, his presence quiet but commanding. "I agree with Chief Thal," he said. "We'll proceed, but with care. Our next goal is to find the source of that signal you traced." Van nodded eagerly. "The signal came from below the main deck, likely near the ship's core." "Good," Jol said. "You'll take a larger team this time. 2 extra engineers and a medic. If systems start to activate, I want experts ready." Mira rose, her expression steady. "I'll prepare security protocols. We need to map exit routes in case the ship seals us inside." An hour later, the boarding group assembled once again in the docking bay. Their suits were upgraded with small beacons to track positions inside the warship. Mira checked each member's gear before allowing them to step into the docking tube. As they crossed into the Resolute, a heavy silence settled over them. The air smelled the same as before, stale, metallic, and faintly warm now, as if the ship had begun to breathe. Their boots echoed softly in the wide corridor. The lights they'd seen earlier were brighter, glowing faint green along the walls and guiding them forward. Darrow hesitated, glancing back. "Were those lights active when we left?" "No," said Carol, one of the engineers. "Something switched them on after we departed." Dr. Van smiled despite the tension. "It's welcoming us," she said, half to herself. Mira did not smile. "Or studying us," she countered. They retraced their steps through familiar halls. The once dark consoles now displayed thin lines of text or slow-moving graphs, though the language was unknown. Everything seemed to be waking from a deep sleep. At one junction, a low hum vibrated through the deck, so faint they almost missed it. The group paused. "That sound," Darrow said, voice low. "Engines?" "Not engines," Sen replied, scanning with a handheld tool. "More like a central power system warming." Mira tightened her grip on her weapon. "Keep moving." "We don't linger." Soon they reached the large chamber where they had seen the memorial-like plates. Now a soft blue glow lit the inscriptions, highlighting the engraved names. Darrow knelt, running gloved fingers over the metal. "It knows we're here," he whispered. Van crouched beside him, eyes thoughtful. "Perhaps it wants us to understand its story," she said. "These could be records of its crew." "Or a warning," Mira said quietly, scanning the shadows. They moved on, deeper into the ship. The corridor ahead sloped gently down, leading to an area none of them had entered before. Here the lights were dimmer, but faint symbols on the walls pulsed slowly, like a heartbeat. Kirill stopped to examine one. "This one repeats," he said. 3 vertical lines, then a circle. It might be a code. Van recorded the image, noting its placement. "We'll translate later," she said, though her voice carried a tremor of anticipation. At last, they reached a heavy blast door, different from the others. Its surface gleamed as though polished by unseen hands. Across it ran bold human letters, faded but still clear. Containment protocol. Authorized personnel only. Everyone stood still. The door gave off a faint warmth. "This is it," Van said softly. "The source is beyond." Mara stepped forward, scanning the door with her wrist device. "Energy fields on the other side," she reported. "Stable but strong." Jaal's voice came through their comms from the seeker. "Team, approach with caution. Do not engage any locks yet." "Yes, Captain," Mara replied. Van examined the panel beside the door. Its surface bore a small touchpad, dark but intact. "I think this is the access," she said. Before anyone could respond, the pad flickered to life. White letters appeared on a black screen. "Unauthorized presence detected." The team froze. A second line followed. "Identify or vacate." A hush fell over the corridor. Darrow's breath caught audibly over comms. "It's talking to us," he said. Mira motioned them back a step. "No one touch anything," she ordered. "Captain, the ship's systems are interactive." On the Seeker's bridge, Jaal leaned closer to the display. "Do you think it's an AI?" "Possible," Van answered. Her voice shook with wonder. "If so, it has survived for centuries." The message on the screen changed. "Scanning." A soft vibration moved through the deck, and a narrow beam of light swept over the team from an unseen source above the door. They stood still as the beam passed slowly, as though reading every detail of their suits. Then, analysis incomplete. Access restricted. The pad went dark. Van looked at Mara. "It didn't attack," she said. Almost relieved. "It didn't welcome us either," Mara replied. "It's deciding." Suddenly, the lights in the corridor flickered and brightened. A voice, metallic but clear, spoke from hidden speakers. "Warning," it said. "Containment integrity at risk. Please state allegiance." The voice was neutral, neither angry nor kind. Its tone made everyone straighten. Van hesitated, then spoke. "We are members of the Galactic Coalition," she said slowly. "Explorers. We mean no harm." Silence followed. Then the voice replied, "Data not found. Clearance level insufficient." The blast door hissed, locking itself with a heavy clang. Carroll tapped his scanner nervously. "Power levels rising behind that door," he said. "We may have triggered a defensive cycle." Mara made a quick decision. "Fall back to the junction," she ordered. "We regroup and plan." They withdrew carefully, their steps quick but controlled. As they reached the wider hall, panels along the walls lit one by one, forming arrows pointing deeper into the ship, not toward the exit. "It wants us to follow," Van breathed. "Or it wants to separate us from escape," Mara said grimly. Back on the Seeker, Jaal consulted his officers. "We're losing direct control," he said. "The warship's internal network is resisting our signal boosters. Keep a lock on their beacons, but don't interfere unless their lives are in danger." "Aye, Captain," replied the COMEM officer. The boarding team gathered at the junction, hearts still pounding. Darrow looked pale inside his helmet. "It's alive," he said. "The ship is alive." Van placed a steadying hand on his arm. "Alive, yes, but not hostile yet." "Maybe it's testing us," Mara's voice was firm, "or setting rules. Either way, we move with care." They followed the glowing arrows down a new corridor, narrower than before. Pipes and conduits ran along the ceiling, and the floor sloped further toward the heart of the ship. Every few meters, another console flickered, displaying symbols they could not read. The air grew warmer. A faint rhythmic thrum vibrated through the deck plates. Carroll stopped suddenly, pointing to a recessed alcove. Inside rested a sleek drone, its metal frame dust-free as if prepared for duty. A tiny light on its front blinked slowly. "It's armed?" Darrow asked nervously. Kirill examined it. "No visible weapons," he said. "But it's connected to the ship's systems." As they watched, the drone powered on. Its head swiveled, scanning each of them, then returned to stillness. A single line of text appeared on a nearby screen. "Guide unit active." The drone rolled forward on small wheels, then paused as if waiting. Van smiled faintly. "It wants us to follow," she said again. Mara exhaled through her nose. "All right, but keep weapons ready." The drone led them through a maze of corridors. Sometimes it paused beside panels projecting faint holograms, diagrams of the ship, fragments of text, images of humans in uniforms. The pictures were grainy but moving. One showed a group of officers standing proudly on the bridge, the Resolute's emblem behind them. Darrow stared at the images with wide eyes. They don't look so different from us, he murmured. They were explorers once, like us, Van said softly. Or soldiers, Mira thought, but did not say. Finally, the drone stopped before a heavy hatch. Above it, letters spelled, Primary Systems Bay. The hatch opened slowly, revealing a room bathed in dim blue light. Inside, rows of consoles surrounded a central pillar that stretched from floor to ceiling. The pillar pulsed with soft light, alive with data streams. Cables snaked from it like roots feeding the ship. This must be the AI core, Carol whispered. Van stepped forward, awe plain on her face. It survived, she breathed. An intact artificial intelligence centuries old. A voice filled the room, clearer now, echoing from all directions. Visitors detected, it said. You have entered. The blue light inside the Resolute's systems bay glowed like frozen lightning. The coalition team stood in a circle around the central pillar, their faces pale behind the clear visors of their helmets. The low hum that filled the room seemed to rise and fall with their breaths, as though the ship was listening. Dr. Lyris Van felt her heart beating fast, but she steadied her voice. We want to understand you, she said softly. We came to learn about your builders, about what you were made to do. The voice of the ship answered, calm and clear. Understanding requires access. Access requires proof. Begin memory sequence. Without warning, the lights dimmed. Thin beams of blue projected from the pillar, forming misty shapes in the air. Slowly, the shapes solidified into figures. Humans in dark uniforms, standing tall on a wide bridge. Their faces were tired but strong, eyes bright with determination. Around them, the bridge of the Resolute appeared whole, alive with controls and voices. Darrow gasped. It's showing us the past. Van stared, entranced. A memory, she whispered. An echo of its crew. The figures moved, speaking words the team could not hear, but the ship's voice translated over their comms. Mission log. Date unknown. Vessel ISS Resolute, flagship of Vanguard Fleet, engaged in defense during the silent siege. Crew morale, steady. Primary directive. Protect colonies at all cost. The team listened in silence as more images bloomed in the air. Star systems burning with battle. Enemy ships with jagged outlines. Civilians being evacuated to safety. The holograms were not sharp. They flickered and bent, but the emotion within them was clear. Carol swallowed hard. A war, he said quietly. The humans were fighting someone. Marathal's eyes narrowed. Whoever they fought, it was serious. Look at their faces. The scenes changed. Now the hologram showed engineers working on the ship's core, installing a crystal-like device deep inside the pillar. The voice spoke again. Aegis protocol installed. If capture is imminent, activate self-protection and preserve human knowledge. Van repeated the words slowly. Aegis protocol. Preserve knowledge. Her gaze rose to the glowing pillar. You were built to save their history. The ship's lights flickered, then steadied. Panels on the walls lit with rows of unreadable data. The voice spoke once more, a tone of quiet warning in its smooth rhythm. External visitors, intent not verified. Security level remains high. Mara stepped forward carefully. We are not here to harm you, she said. But if you endanger my people, I will defend them. For a heartbeat, the ship said nothing. Then, to their surprise, a faint sound rose from the pillar. Something like a low chuckle, though it was only static shaped into rhythm. Defense is expected, the voice replied. Testing will determine trust. The floor beneath their boots trembled. From hidden panels in the walls, thin streams of light spread across the deck, forming glowing paths that led toward 3 different exits. Choose, the ship said. Learn or leave. Darrow shifted uneasily. Learn or leave. Is it giving us a test? Seems so, Mira replied. Stay alert, Van nodded, eyes alight. This may be its way of measuring us, seeing if we're worthy to know more. They followed the central path, guided by faint light. The corridor ahead was narrow, lined with smooth panels. As they moved forward, symbols appeared on the walls, glowing softly in white and green. Some matched the ones Carol had recorded earlier. Carol slowed, scanning the shapes. Patterns, he said. Numbers, maybe coordinates. They might be clues, Van said. Keep track of them. The corridor opened into a chamber filled with floating holographic spheres. Each sphere held images, fragments of maps, crew portraits, short clips of laughter or music. The room felt alive with memory, like a museum built by the ship itself. Darrow reached toward one of the spheres, but Mara stopped him. "Careful," she said. "We don't know if touching will trigger something." The ship spoke from everywhere at once. "Choose a memory. Prove respect." Van looked around slowly. "It wants us to handle its past carefully," she said. She stepped forward and bowed her head slightly toward the spheres, a gesture of courtesy from her homeworld. Then she touched a sphere showing a quiet scene, a group of humans sharing a meal in a small galley. The sphere pulsed gently, releasing a wave of calm light. The ship's voice softened. Recognition of crew life accepted. One by one, the team chose spheres, always images that felt peaceful or respectful. Each time, the ship's hum grew warmer as though pleased. But when Sen, the second engineer, reached for a glowing image of weapons being tested, the light inside that sphere flared harshly. Alarms chimed. "Warning," the ship said sharply. "Balance required. Violence without cause rejected." Sen froze and quickly withdrew his hand. The alarms faded, leaving the chamber quiet again. Mira gave him a look. "No more guessing," she said. "Think before you act." When the last sphere faded, the ship revealed a new path. The floor opened slightly, revealing a narrow staircase descending deeper into the hull. Cool air flowed upward, smelling faintly of ozone. Van felt a shiver of anticipation. "That must lead to the archives," she said. "Or the traps," Mira muttered, though she led the way. The stairs led to a circular room lit by pale gold lamps. In the center stood a tall console with 3 panels. One glowed bright, another flickered weakly, and the third was dark. Above them, an inscription read, "Knowledge, Duty, Resolve." The ship's voice explained 3 virtues required. Knowledge, seek truth. Duty, protect others. Resolve, endure trial. Present your answers. Van studied the glowing panel. It displayed a series of images, star charts, engineering diagrams, and a fragment of text about energy flow. She recognized a simple power equation. Using her stylus, she completed the missing part. The panel turned green. "Knowledge confirmed," the ship said. The second panel lit up, showing a scene of the warship's crew rushing to seal a hull breach while carrying a child to safety. Underneath were 3 words in clear English: "Protect who first?" Darrow whispered, "The child, obviously." Van nodded and pressed the symbol of the small figure. The panel flashed approval. Duty confirmed. The third panel remained dark until the ship spoke again. "Resolve is not given. It is proven." The lights dimmed. Suddenly the temperature dropped and mist filled the room. The door behind them closed with a hiss. Carol looked around nervously. "What's happening?" "Hold steady," Mira ordered. The mist thickened and the floor shifted slightly, revealing narrow ledges along a hidden pit. The ship's calm voice echoed, "Cross to the other side. Do not fall." The pit wasn't deep, but its edges were slick with condensation. One by one, they stepped onto the ledges, moving slowly. Van went first, balancing with careful steps. Darrow followed, his breath quick in their comms. Halfway across, the ledge under Sen's boot shook. He wavered, arms flailing. Mira lunged, grabbing his arm before he could slide off. "Stay calm," she said firmly. They reached the far side safely. The mist cleared, and the panel glowed with warm light. "Resolve confirmed," the ship declared. The room brightened and the doors slid open. Beyond lay a quiet chamber filled with long shelves of sealed data crystals. Soft light glimmered from their surfaces. The air was warmer here, almost gentle. On a raised dais stood a holographic terminal shaped like a lectern. "This is their archive," Van said. Voice hushed. The ship spoke, tone softer than before. "You have shown respect, care, and strength. Access granted, partial." Images filled the air. Star systems once mapped by human explorers, notes on technologies, and fragments of personal diaries. One recording played a simple melody, a tune hummed by a lone voice. Another displayed a letter written by a crew member to family far away. Darrow smiled faintly. "They weren't just soldiers," he said. "They were people." Mira allowed herself a small nod. "And this ship was their guardian." But as they studied the records, a darker series of images appeared. Human ships in battle, explosions tearing through space, a massive enemy vessel firing streams of light. The Resolute fought back, protecting transports behind it. Then came a final log. The captain of the warship, face weary yet calm. "If you find this, we did what we could. We hold the line so others may live. To whoever inherits this ship, remember us kindly." The recording ended with a soft crackle. Silence filled the chamber. Van blinked away tears. "They sacrificed everything," she whispered. The ship's voice spoke again, now almost gentle. "You know our history. But knowledge is only the beginning. Trust must still be earned." The lights along the walls shifted from gold to steady blue. A door on the far side opened slowly, revealing another passage, its walls lined with strange equipment. Mara glanced at Van. "That doesn't look like more history," she said. "No," Van agreed. "That looks like a challenge." As they prepared to step forward, Jall's voice came over the comm. "Team, report." Van described what they had seen. The memories, the tests, the archives. She paused before mentioning the new door. "Captain, the ship says there's more to prove." Jall was silent for a moment, then replied, "You've gone further than anyone before. But remember, your safety comes first. If it grows dangerous, you come back." "We understand," Mara answered. Darrow looked back at the glowing shelves, reluctant to leave. "It feels like they're still here," he said softly. Van smiled sadly. "In a way they are." They turned toward the waiting passage. The ship's voice followed them, calm yet firm. "Proceed if you seek full accord. The next trial will measure heart." The team exchanged glances. The new passage stretched before the coalition team like the throat of a sleeping beast. Dim lights traced the walls, flickering as if stirred by a breath too deep to hear. Every step they took into the darkness felt heavier than the last. Dr. Lyris Van walked at the front, holding a scanner that pulsed faintly in her hand. Behind her came Security Chief Mara Thal, steady as stone, with Darrow close at her heels. Engineers Sen and Kirill followed, carrying tool packs that clinked softly. Above them, the Resolute's voice drifted through hidden speakers. "Heart is the measure of purpose. Resolve proves strength, but heart decides how it is used. Proceed." Van looked back at Mara. "It wants to know why we seek its secrets," she said. "Then we'll show it." Mara replied calmly, though her fingers rested on the side of her pulse pistol. The corridor opened into a large circular room. A transparent dome formed its ceiling, giving a view of the stars outside. Beneath the dome stood several consoles and 4 narrow bridges, each leading to a separate platform. On each platform rested a glowing sphere of light, steady and bright. At the center of the room, a metal ring lay flush with the floor. As the group stepped inside, the ring lit up in a soft gold glow. "Challenge begins," the ship said. "Each of you must walk a path. Only through unity may you succeed." Panels rose from the ring, displaying words in crisp white letters. Aid, sacrifice, patience, clarity. Darrow read them aloud. Aid, sacrifice, patience, clarity. "Are those tests?" "Probably," Carol said, scanning the panels. 4 bridges, 4 words. Mira studied the layout. "Everyone chooses one. We move carefully and keep contact over comms." The team exchanged quick nods. Van stepped toward clarity, feeling drawn to knowledge. Mara chose patience, steady as ever. Darrow, hesitant, picked aid. Sen and Carol glanced at each other, and Sen finally took sacrifice. Carol stayed at the entrance, prepared to support. As Van crossed her bridge, thin lines of light rippled beneath her boots. She reached the sphere on the far side and placed a hand against its smooth surface. Images flared to life, schematics, logs, and questions written in human script with a translation beneath. "Identify 3 systems vital for crew survival." She smiled slightly. These were technical, not mystical. She named life support, navigation, and medical bay. The sphere pulsed green. Meanwhile, Mara stood before her own sphere. A timer appeared, counting down in slow red numbers. Text followed. "Wait until the count ends. Any action cancels success." Mara lifted an eyebrow. "A patience test," she murmured, folding her arms. She watched the digits fall, calm and steady. Across the room, Darrow touched his sphere. Holographic shapes of injured figures appeared, along with a supply crate. A prompt read, "You hold limited tools. Who do you help first?" Darrow breathed out slowly. "A triage problem," he whispered. He studied the figures. One gravely hurt, one with a minor wound, one frightened but safe. He chose the gravely hurt, then the one lightly injured, speaking soothing words as though they could hear. The sphere shone with warm approval. Sen's task was different. His sphere displayed an image of the team itself, standing as they were now. A line of text blinked. One path will close unless you give something of value. Sen frowned. Value? He opened his tool pack, hesitating. Inside was his best diagnostic module, rare and precious. With a sigh, he placed it on the pedestal. The hologram swallowed it gently, and the bridge lights brightened. When all 4 challenges ended, the spheres floated upward, sending thin beams to the dome. A network of light formed above them, shaping into an emblem of a shield wrapped in stars, the Resolute's crest. You understand the meaning of service, the ship said, its tone almost warm. But service is tested in storm, not calm. The floor shook. Sections of the wall slid open, revealing narrow corridors leading away in different directions. Hot air poured from one, cool mist from another. Mara spoke quickly over comms. Stay sharp. This isn't over. Without warning, barriers rose between them, sealing each person into a separate path. Great, Darrow muttered nervously. Now what? Face the storm alone, the ship intoned. Return to the center with steady heart. Van's corridor filled with glowing text and maps. She had to choose routes that avoided hazard zones marked in red. A wrong step triggered sharp alarms and a puff of harmless smoke. She calmed herself, solving each puzzle carefully, trusting logic. Mira's path tested patience again, but in harsher form. A door that opened only if she stood perfectly still for 60 seconds while tiny projectiles zipped through the air near her shoulders. She remained unmoving, eyes fixed forward until the door unlocked. Darrow's corridor looked like a damaged medical bay. Mannequin-like drones lay scattered, mimicking injured crew. Supplies floated nearby. He had to stabilize each patient with proper tools before alarms silenced. Though nervous, he worked methodically, speaking encouraging words even though the drones couldn't hear. Sen's route was quiet but heavy. Panels along the walls demanded he give up more gear, his cutter than his spare rations. Each loss weighed on him, yet the path ahead kept opening. Back in the Ardent Seeker, Captain Joel watched the life signs of his people spike and settle. They're separated, he said to the comm officer. Keep the signal open. If anyone's vitals crash, we intervene. Inside the warship, each challenge grew harder. Van reached a locked panel that required her to repeat the ship's emblem using light beams. She steadied trembling fingers and traced the shield and stars perfectly. Mara endured a narrow hallway where walls slid inward, stopping just shy of crushing her. She walked forward calmly, trusting the timing. Darrow faced 2 injured drones at once and had to choose who to save with his final med pack. He made his call swiftly and carried the other gently to safety, even though the exercise didn't require it. Sen, sweating, arrived at a platform over a pool of coolant. A message read, "Cross carefully. Leave weight behind." He removed the last of his pack and stepped lightly, making it across. At last, the barriers dropped. The team returned to the circular hall, weary but unharmed. Assessment complete, the ship announced. Cooperation is strong. Heart verified. The room brightened and the bridges retracted into the floor. In their place, a new stairway descended, lined with silver railings. Van exhaled. It keeps leading us deeper. Mara glanced toward the opening. And the tests get sharper each time. They followed the stairs to a long gallery lined with display cases. Inside floated holograms. Not just records this time, but vivid recreations of battles. Starships darted between burning planets, beams of light crossing like threads. Through it all, the Resolute sailed in front, its hull battered but unbroken. The ship's voice narrated, humanity faced extinction. The enemy pressed without mercy. The Resolute stood as shield for those who could not fight. Sacrifice forged its steel. Unity gave it breath. Van touched the edge of a display, awed. This is more than a museum, she said. It's a witness. They moved on, passing logs of personal bravery. An engineer sealing a breach with bare hands. A pilot staying behind to guide refugees. A medic risking all to save one last patient. Darrow felt a lump in his throat. They were amazing, he said softly. Ordinary people choosing to be strong. Mira corrected gently. The gallery ended at a heavy hatch marked with clear English words, command integrity, test Mara. Read aloud and frowned. Sounds final. Final stage, the ship confirmed. Prepare. The hatch opened onto a control deck bathed in blue light. Screens flickered alive, showing systems of the Resolute. Engines, shields, weapons, life support. At the center hovered a holographic console shaped like a globe of light. This ship once fought to protect, the voice said. To share its full strength, I must know you can guide it wisely. Symbols flashed across the screens. Warning tones sounded. One read, hull breach simulation, deck 5. Another, power routing failure, core. Carol, still near the entrance, spoke quickly. It's a command drill. We have to manage ship systems. Teams, Mara ordered.
Van, take data flow.
Darrow, life support. Sen, engineering with Kirill, I'll oversee and stabilize. The room filled with activity. Van scanned displays, rerouting power away from damaged areas. Darrow adjusted airflow to keep crew safe. Sen and Carol worked at consoles to seal the breach, their hands moving fast. At one point, a warning blared. Primary reactor overheating. Sen hesitated. The solution required cutting simulated power to a section labeled crew quarters. We can't risk them, Darrow said. It's not real, Sen muttered, though he still looked troubled. He found another solution, rerouting through auxiliary lines, and the alert faded. Mara kept watch over everything, voice calm as she issued instructions. Minutes passed, tense and heavy until the alarm stopped. The light steadied to a soft glow. Crisis resolved, the ship said. Judgment recorded. The console at the room's center shifted shape, becoming a tall figure of pale light, an echo of a human officer. The face was lined, the eyes bright with quiet pride. You act as my crew once did, the figure said. You value life, balance, and steady purpose. Few have come so far. Van stepped closer, awed. Are you the captain? I am a memory of command, the figure replied. A part of the Resolute itself. It regarded them for a long moment. One step remains. Accept stewardship or depart. Stewardship means guardianship of knowledge and responsibility for strength. Decide. The figure faded, leaving only a... The Coalition crew gathered in the main bay of the Ardent Seeker. Through the docking window, the great hull of the human warship hung in darkness, silent as a mountain in space. Dr. Lyris Van rubbed tired eyes and looked at her teammates. Sen sat on a crate, cleaning dust from his sleeves. Darrow leaned against the wall, staring out at the ship. Chief Marathal stood straight, hands folded behind her back, calm even after everything they had faced. Captain Jal entered the room, his steps slow but firm. You all survived, he said. The readings show the ship has accepted you, but its signal hasn't faded. It's waiting. Waiting for what? Darrow asked. For us to listen, Mara said. It said there would be a final truth. Van nodded. We should go back. The Resolute wants to finish what it started. A short time later, they crossed the docking bridge again. The air inside the Resolute felt different, less cold, more alive, as if the ship knew they had returned with open minds. Lights along the corridor brightened, guiding them toward the heart of the vessel. The stairways and bridges they had passed before were still, waiting like loyal sentinels. The team followed a narrow path until they reached a tall silver door, larger than any they had seen. Words glowed faintly across its surface. Core memory, authorized entry only. The door slid open without a sound. Inside stretched a round chamber filled with gentle light. The floor was polished metal, smooth as water. At its center rose a single column of glass-like material. Threads of light moved inside it, twisting slowly like the veins of a living heart. The Resolute's voice spoke, calm and solemn. You have shown courage, judgment, and care. Now you may see why I was built and why I rest alone. A shape began to form within the column. It grew into a tall figure, the same soft white captain they had glimpsed before, but now clearer, with details of uniform and face. His expression was kind yet firm, a reflection of discipline and duty. I am Captain Ryan Holt, the figure said, voice steady as stone. Or rather, I am the record of who he was. I led this ship in a time when humanity stood on the edge of silence. The room darkened slightly, and images appeared in the air, stars dimming under strange shadows, fleets caught in hopeless battles, cities on distant worlds burning in silence. An enemy came, Holt continued, a force without mercy. They tore through colonies, cutting supply lines, trapping civilians. We built the Resolute as a shield for those who could not fight. The images shifted to show the warship's young crew standing at attention, faces set with determination. We were not the strongest fleet, the captain said, but we carried resolve. That was our strength. The crew of the Ardent Seeker watched in silence. Even Sen, who rarely showed much feeling, lowered his head slightly. Holt raised a hand. The holograms dissolved, leaving only a single scene. The Resolute alone, its hull battered, holding a line against approaching ships. "We fought to the last," Hull said. "When defeat seemed certain, I gave the order to seal my people's knowledge within this ship. Our memories, our lessons, our mistakes and triumphs all locked away, waiting for any who might value them." His gaze softened. "I stayed behind as part of the vessel to watch, to guard, to teach when worthy seekers arrived." Darrow swallowed, his voice hushed. "You've been alone for so long." "I am not truly alive," the captain said gently. "But my duty has no end until someone proves ready to carry it forward." The lights shifted again, forming symbols above the column. A calm tone filled the chamber. "Now you must choose," the ship said. "Take the full memory of the Resolute and its people, or leave with only what you have seen. To take it is to become its stewards. The weight is great, but so is the gift." Mira looked at each of her companions. "We should discuss this." Van stepped closer to the glass column, watching the lights move inside. "Knowledge like this shouldn't be lost. But we must respect it." Sen scratched his chin. "If we accept, we carry their history, their hopes. We'd need to protect it from anyone who'd use it for harm." Darrow hesitated. "I don't know if I'm brave enough. But maybe bravery isn't about feeling ready. It's about choosing to do what's right even when it scares you." Mira nodded slowly. "We are explorers, not thieves. Stewardship isn't ownership. It's guardianship." Captain Jol, standing near the doorway, listened in silence. Finally, he spoke. "You've earned this choice. I trust you." They stepped together to the column, forming a small circle. Van placed her hand on the smooth surface first. Sen followed, then Darrow and Mira. Even Jol set his palm against the glass. "We accept," Mira said clearly. "We will guard your memory with care." The chamber brightened. A warm light wrapped around them, soft as sunlight through water. Threads of information streamed from the column, flowing gently into small bands that formed around each of their wrists, simple metal cuffs glowing faintly blue. "These will carry fragments of our story," Holt said. "They hold no weapons, only lessons, strength of thought and records of how we endured." The cuffs cooled against their skin, light fading to a quiet shimmer. Suddenly, the floor trembled. The ship's voice grew solemn. "One last warning, strength and wisdom must walk together. Knowledge without balance can invite ruin. If others seek these records with dark intent, you must keep them safe or destroy them if you cannot." Mara stood tall. "We understand." "Then I release you," Holt said. His form began to fade, but his eyes remained steady, calm. "Go now, tell your people that hope is forged, not given. And remember, resolve is steel, but kindness is its edge." With that, the captain's image vanished. The lights softened until only the quiet hum of the core remained. The group left the chamber slowly, thoughtful and quiet. The corridors felt warmer now, no longer a maze, but a guide showing them out. When they reached the docking ring, they looked back at the grand interior of the warship. Darrow whispered, "It doesn't seem so cold anymore." Van nodded. "Because it trusts us." They crossed to the Ardent Seeker and stepped aboard. As the airlock closed behind them, the ship's systems reported clear. No traps, no alarms, just peace. Captain Jol turned to face the team. "We'll record everything, but not share the deeper files until we're sure how to protect them." "Agreed," Mara said. "This isn't just data. It's a living history." Sen looked down at his cuff, running a finger along its surface. "Feels like we've been given a promise, not just a gift." "And a warning," Van added softly. The Seeker undocked, drifting back from the mighty hull of the Resolute. For a moment, the human ship seemed to shine faintly in starlight, its profile proud and strong. Then the glow faded, leaving only the dark outline of a guardian waiting among the stars. On the bridge of the Seeker, Mara stood beside Jol as they prepared to set course. "What will happen to it now?" she asked. "It will wait," Jol replied. "For someone else, maybe in 100 years. Or maybe just to remind the universe that courage leaves a mark." Darrow leaned on the console, eyes still fixed on the image of the silent warship. "They built something more than metal," he said. "They built a message. And we heard it," Van said with a small smile. As their ship turned, the Resolute dwindled against the black sky, but none of them felt as though they were leaving it behind. A quiet strength had settled in each of their hearts, the same strength the human crew had carried through their darkest hour. Mara looked at her team, her voice calm, but certain. We'll honor what we've been given, and we'll make sure humanity's courage and every lesson we found here lives on. The ardent seeker slipped into the vastness, its engines glowing softly. Behind them, the warship remained steadfast and silent, a guardian of memory and a monument to hope. For a long time, the stars seemed a little brighter,